Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, it is great to have you, and today I'm going to be explaining everything bullish about Bitcoin and making the case for a $30,000 bottom. Now if that sounds interesting at all, make sure you guys stick around for the entire length of the video, as there will be important information discussed the entire way through. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this one. Now, skipping the breakdown, skipping all the bearish stuff that has happened, if you guys would have been part of the channel, you would have known that I called this a couple days before it even happened. But after the breakdown of this pennant and the number one support, in my opinion, the 200 EMA on this daily timescale, which was also at the previous all-time high, this was a pretty significant level. And one of the things that I was desperately watching for is if Bitcoin was going to retest this former support as resistance, which indeed it has done. Now, the number one support after this, which I explained, was the lower end of the $30,000 range, because this was the previous support level and the previous low after we reached this previous all-time high. So where did we come through? Almost to the dollar, right exactly in this $30,000 range. Again, it's nothing too crazy. It's just simple technical analysis from a macros perspective. Now, with Bitcoin kind of jumping around in this range below 40,000, or excuse me, below 42,000 and above 30,000, we now have it consolidating between this level of resistance and support in here. And now with Bitcoin doing this, I want to look at some of the indicators and oscillators and also break this down on a smaller time scale, because I think that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes here that we can't see from a daily's perspective in a daily candle. While it is really important to note that we had two daily rejections from this 200 EMA, which again was previous support, now turn resistance, and also how we had this support off of this previous support level, or this the previous low. We need to look at this on a 4-hour time scale, because what this is going to show us is that we are now at the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time scale. Now, above this, we are also seeing Bitcoin showing some positive momentum from this relative strength index. And I want to highlight this because this is something I like to always highlight when I'm seeing it. And this is the consistently higher swing lows on Bitcoin from an oversold position. Now, more often than not, this turns out to be a bullish thing for Bitcoin, because what this is showing is that upon every attempt to the downside, there are lower levels of negative momentum upon these swing attempts and upon these bearish attempts to bring Bitcoin even lower. Now, this is a sign that the bulls are inadvertently getting stronger, and as a result, we have seen that in the price pump of Bitcoin. Now, with Bitcoin pumping, I think, what is this if we want to measure it out? With Bitcoin pumping, I think it was around 20%, 30% almost, back up to this 50 EMA. This is going to be a pretty key level, because this is the first time that Bitcoin is truly testing the 50 EMA on this 4-hour time scale since it had a death cross. Now, this was support for a while on Bitcoin until Bitcoin ultimately had this death cross. We have seen it be used as resistance before, but this will be pretty interesting, because we have held pretty much below this since the initial tank, and this is the first real time that we'll test this. In fact, I think that if Bitcoin can break this, it's going to go straight to $42,000. And if it can break that 42 to 43 range, I really don't see anything stopping Bitcoin from going towards the upper end of the $40,000 spectrum, probably like $48,000 to $50,000, right around this 200 EMA. Now, there is a lot of factors to kind of factor in here and in between, but this would make a lot of sense. Again, previous support, now turn resistance, and we also have the 200 EMA right around this area. So I think that it would make a lot of sense. But, I think a lot of the bearish stuff is for another video, because if we go back to the daily time scale, we can also see on the MACD that the bearish momentum over here has already started rounding up. That's not to say that it can't tank, or it's tank proof and bearish proof. That's not what I'm saying here. But more often than not, when this guy starts rounding on a daily time scale, we can see that when it's rounded over here, it's gone back to the upside. Same thing with here and here. So it's more often than not, it's pretty safe to say, in my opinion, that Bitcoin is going to look for at least some sort of a bounce in the least right here. Now, I'm not saying it's going straight back to all-time highs, but with this being shown over here, granted, this is the third lower swing low on the daily MACD. Not necessarily what you want to see as a bull. In fact, you want to see the opposite of seeing higher swing lows, which is the reverse effect of this one, which would mean, again, the same thing of bears are getting consistently weaker upon every attempt to the downside, which is just not something that we're seeing on the daily time scale yet, but something that we could very well be seeing in the future. In fact, what that would most likely look like is if Bitcoin were to round up over here, had a nice little high, had a higher swing low, and did something like this. So then we could set up a double bullish divergence and kind of wipe the scale for Bitcoin from there, and hopefully move even higher. Now, moving on to the RSI, one thing to note over here is that we do not have that same level of bullish divergence that we saw on the 4-hour. Again, we could just be preemptively seeing that on the 4-hour chart first because it's a smaller time scale, and we're going to see things, I guess, faster and in smaller scale because it is that smaller time scale, which makes complete sense. But things take a little bit longer to develop on a macro scale, the larger of the time scale that you move forward. Now, that's a lot of the reason that we're not seeing this higher swing low on the daily time scale yet. But again, that doesn't mean that it can't happen over here. In fact, if we set ourselves up and come back into this oversold territory and set a higher swing low, I would actually think that it makes a very good case for Bitcoin, even if it was to rip some more. I think that Bitcoin at this level could even rip back up to like 48.50, and it'd still be a pretty nice bounce for Bitcoin from here, and then even come back down and set that higher swing low. So that's kind of just what I'm theory crafting. Again, I'm throwing like the paper plane into the audience with a note written on it, hoping that it's going to hit the right person. But I guess it's not quite as far-fetched as that, but that was a really bad analogy. But essentially here, we are theory crafting. We are kind of doing a little bit more prediction and less technical analysis with kind of analyzing something like this. But based off of what I have seen the RSI do, I don't think that it would be out of the books to say that Bitcoin can't bounce here. And I think that it's actually very likely that Bitcoin will continue to bounce in the least. Now, I think in the next video, I'm going to compare the initial bounce of the bear market from 2017 to the initial bounce that we have seen in this current state of Bitcoin, because they are, again, pretty similar. I talked about that in, I think, like one of the last 2 videos, but I want to expand on that in a whole separate video. For the sake of this one, volume is falling off. I really don't see too much of a bear flag yet. We could potentially be forming a pennant in this area, but for the most part, I think that the key resistance that Bitcoin has to break here is going to be this this $42,000 area. If Bitcoin can break this, it will be in a very, very good situation. And if it breaks below, I would say 30,000. And again, I know this is supposed to be the bullish video, so I don't want to dive too much into this. But if Bitcoin breaks 30,000, I think that things will get very ugly very fast, immediately tanking probably to 26, if not 25, 24. That is going to be pretty much the end of this video. Again, I think that there's a lot of bounce potential for Bitcoin on here, especially if it breaks that $42,000 area. That is going to be a key resistance that Bitcoin has to break. I know we already rejected it once. Time will tell, but this has presented a lot of buying opportunities that people have been excited for. The way that I am playing this, and I was telling a lot of my people that are very close to me, the way that I am playing this is I am buying the dips. Now, I'm doing this very slowly. I just started buying back Bitcoin. If you guys remember, I sold the last of my Bitcoin off at like 60,000. I think it was like 59, 60,000. And I sold the last of my cryptocurrencies off there. And I'm just now buying back in. I think my first buy was at $37,000 on Bitcoin. And I'm scaling into this slowly. This is not something where I am all inning and I'm throwing all of my money at this, because I am fully aware that this thing could easily tank down to 26, 25, 24,000, maybe even lower than that. And it's possible. It's not guaranteed, but it's very possible. So with that being said, I am scaling into this slowly. I am not throwing 80% of my portfolio back in here, so with that being said, I kind of want to have that disclosure out there. Now, nothing I say is financial, legal, or tax advice in any sort of way, but I am being cautious at these levels, but I'm also being vigilant and taking advantage of cheap prices on a lot of mainstream and not so mainstream cryptocurrencies. So hopefully this video did help you guys out. Hopefully you guys did find it interesting. This is just my thoughts on Bitcoin and as to what I am looking for Bitcoin to be really bullish at this area. Again, I want to see those consistent higher swing lows to really show me that the bears are getting weaker here and that Bitcoin wants to reverse from this potential $30,000 bottom. Now, if these things can happen, I think that Bitcoin's future can look very bright. If it doesn't happen, we're going to get eerily close to that death cross on the one-day time scale, which is something that none of us want to see, because if nothing else, and if you don't think that the bull market has sealed its fate yet, then if the one-day death cross does happen, there's pretty much no argument to say that the bull market is still alive. So hopefully we can see this stuff break. Hopefully we can see Bitcoin come back to this extremely bullish past 12 months that it has had, and hopefully continue to see new highs on really in all of cryptocurrency. So if you guys did like this video, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button, as there will be new content like this one coming out all the time, and you guys want to stay in touch with everything that is happening in the world of cryptocurrency. Once again, thank you guys all for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, throw me a comment in the comment section down below, and I will see all of you in the next video.